Those of you who have met me before, my name is Laura Clayton, and I own Soul Sanctuary Yoga Studios. So that's a yoga and wellness studio based in Worcester. And I was presenting to you guys a couple of weeks ago on sleep. So hopefully you're all feeling really very rested and refreshed after all my tips last time. And today we are obviously moving on to stress awareness because, as Ellen rightly said, Stress Awareness Month is in April. So it's starting tomorrow. And this presentation is going to be available for you for the whole of the month. So you can obviously, really get to know it, re-listen to it as much as you need to kind of learn really what I always pride myself on, and hopefully you've taken that away from my sessions before, is kind of just practical tips that you can really use to help yourself stay well, both physically and mentally. So my kind of perspective is that our physical wellness is directly connected to our mental wellness, and stress is obviously a huge part of that. So how our kind of lay of the land looks today is that we have 4 till 4:15, but I'll go over a little bit because we're obviously starting a little bit later, the mental aspect of stress. So how stress impacts our mind, where it comes from, and what happens mentally with stress. And then moving on to the physical aspect of stress. So what does that actually do to our physical body in terms of our kind of chemical state and our wellness and illness, etc. And then obviously how to avoid it, one of the most important things, or what to do if you are feeling stressed to get rid of it. And then we're going to end with a seated yoga session, which is only going to be 10 minutes. And I'm going to keep it really nice and simple, and again, practical. So those of you that might not think chair yoga is for you, think of this more as like a stretch that you can do when you're sitting at your desk. And you'll understand, hopefully by the end of the presentation, why it's so important to do that, even though it might seem like it's not going to make much of a difference in terms of our kind of chemical state. It really does. So having something really simple like that kind of in your toolkit to help you if you're feeling stressed can be really useful. And then finally, with a 10-minute meditation, which we did a version of meditation called Yoga Nidra last time, which you all seem to enjoy. So here's just a different style of meditation, which is really effective on stress. So that's how we're going to go today. As usual, if you do, as Ella said, have any questions, please ask away. Obviously, the chat is there for you to use, but, really happy for you to take yourselves off mute and ask as we go along. We have got 10 minutes at the end for Q&A as well. Okay, so let's get started. So what is Stress Awareness Month? Essentially, it's happened every April since 1992. And the idea is to increase public awareness about the causes and cures for the modern stress epidemic. And that is really how we need to consider stress, that it is actually an epidemic at the moment. You say to someone, how are you doing? And your kind of inevitable is like, yeah, I'm okay, like a bit stressed, a lot going on, but that seems to be the norm. And it doesn't have to be the norm. It shouldn't be the norm. Stress really needs to be taken more seriously. So according to the Mental Health Foundation, 74% of adults in the UK have felt so stressed at some point over the last year that they felt overwhelmed or unable to cope. So, that's a huge percentage, and just shows us that really we've got quite a long way to go. Stress is one of the great public health challenges of our time, and it's not being taken as seriously as physical health concerns. And hopefully, again, by the end of the presentation, you're going to see how the two are intrinsically linked. So we can't separate our mental state and our physical state. The physical state is a direct result of the mental state. So we have to be taking stress more seriously. Stress is obviously a significant factor in mental health problems, including anxiety and depression. But as I've mentioned, it's also linked to physical health, and it can really affect heart disease, our immune system, insomnia, and digestive health. So we'll go on to talk about that in more detail. So we need to understand what is causing us personal stress and learn what steps we can take to reduce it for ourselves and others around us. Okay, and that's really the crux of it for me. It's just understanding what is the cause, what is the root, and what can we do about it. And really, hopefully, long-term fix rather than short-term fix. Great. So let's look at mental stress to start there. So what causes you stress? Now, some of you, I will have asked you this before because I have presented on mental stress before. So you may have seen some of this, but it's really important to try and look at it with the perspective of where you are in your kind of world today. So there'll be different things going on for you now, so you might be able to apply that differently. So today, what is kind of causing you stress? You don't have to name names, by the way. You can if you want.
I'll say that I started on Monday, so I'm going through my induction process.
Okay.
But it's been really good and not that stressful. But I was stressed about obviously starting a new job a little bit.
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, and that is, not surprising, and also ties in really well with what we'll be saying later on as to why that is going to cause stress. Brilliant. Anybody else?
One that links in really well with Corona's health.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, both of you. So there's fear, isn't there? There's fear around at the moment, around our health, especially with COVID. And yes, children can definitely cause us stress. Anything else?
Moving house.
Yeah, moving house, absolutely. Almost getting into overwhelm when there's too much to do on the to-do list, and uncertainty as well. Anything else?
Family members, so elderly members of family.
Yep, yeah. So it goes from children and then all the way up, doesn't it? No getting away from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. So here are some of the very common causes of stress. So we've got the guy on the left, the boss, or maybe that's work, and then you've got family, including children. Money, that can be a huge stress for some people. Health at the moment, absolutely, and then uncertainty. So all of these really common triggers for stress, and obviously lots more. So let's talk about why that happens. So from a mental perspective, the untrained mind doesn't do what we want it to do. And so we need to kind of understand, how can we make it do what we want it to do? And I've used this visual here because if anyone's got a dog, if you don't train it, it isn't going to play ball, it isn't going to do what you want. And if we don't train the mind, the same thing happens. So this is why meditation is so important, and it can get such a bad reputation, meditation, for not being for certain people. But if we think about it really, just like exercising, we spoke about this in the sleep presentation, exercising the mind is really important to keep it strong and train it to do what you want. So if we don't exercise the mind, this tends to be what happens. Sorry, did somebody say something? Okay, if we don't exercise the mind, what tends to happen is that the mind wanders off, and it either wanders off to the past, which can link to depression, or it wanders off to the future, which can link to anxiety. And again, this is really broad sweeping, but it's helpful to keep that simple framework in mind. So where we really want to be is in the present moment. And, I'll talk you through in meditation how we do that practically, but from a really obvious perspective, it's about tuning in with, the here and the now. So whether that's the breath, whether it's the sounds in the room, whether it's the sensations as you drink water, whatever it is, mindfulness and meditation go close together because they're just trying to keep you present in this moment. There is no point wasting energy on stuff that's happened in the past that we can't do anything about, or worrying about things in the future which never go the way that we kind of predict in our mind anyway. So to combat that, we need to stay present, and meditation will help you do that. So we'll go through meditation at the end, as I've mentioned. Keep these theories in mind. So if we didn't exercise the body, it would disease. If we don't exercise the mind, the same thing happens. So we wouldn't just expect our body to stay well by not doing anything. And yet I really feel like we expect that of the mind. And sometimes things like, yoga, meditation, therapy, whatever it might be, that is so good for mental health, can sometimes be kind of not taken seriously. So yeah, we need to take the mind as seriously as we do the body. So as I've mentioned, exercise for the brain, think of meditation that way, and we'll put that into practice shortly. So this is always my kind of question, but why? Why doesn't the mind just do what we want? Why should it be such hard work to make it stay present? Surely it should be easy. So the reason is that it's actually a safety mechanism. It's self-protection. It's actually a good thing. If the mind didn't wander off to the future and try and protect us or try and predict danger, then we wouldn't have lasted as long as we have as humans. So it's looking for danger to help keep us safe. If we can predict where it's coming from, we've got more chance of avoiding it. They call it like healthy paranoia. You know, if you have that sense at work that, okay, I must do this because this is going to happen, and so therefore I need to be ready, that's going to make you perform. That's going to help you somehow. However, in today's day and age, it's out of control. Everything seems to be a perceived threat. And this is the problem. You know, we don't have the saber-toothed tiger anymore. We don't have bears anymore. We just have deadlines, mortgages, bosses, you know, COVID at the moment, which is actually life-threatening, which, you know, is the equivalent. This is why stress has increased so much. But essentially, this is why we do this. It's to keep us safe. So it's a good thing, and I think that's really important to keep in mind. Stress can seem so negative, so if we can change the lens on that straight away, it will really help us. It's a good thing. It's designed to keep us safe. We just need to make sure that it's working in the right way for us. So here's this kind of classic stress process, which some of you definitely will have seen, some of you may have not. So keeping it really simple, the brain looks for danger to keep you safe, and then adrenaline and cortisol flood the body. So those are the stress hormones, and that makes us do one of three things: fight, flight, so run away, or freeze. And you'll see these are all survival mechanisms. Obviously, you know, I don't know if you've ever seen, there's a great clip on YouTube with a tiger, and it's come across an armadillo that just kind of rolls over and plays dead, and it just moves on. So freeze is also a real reaction to stress, and you may find that also happens to you, where you just feel like you can't do anything and you hit overwhelm. So that's equally as important. So that's the process, but what do we do about it? So if something is stressing you, okay, then, you know, you've got options, and what I'll talk about are the physical options a bit later on, but staying on the mental side of it to start with, what we have to do is change our lens. So if that thing that we initially perceive as a threat, if we can change our lens, and maybe you've got something in mind now, and you can see it actually as a challenge, and I'd go even further and say an opportunity, you know, and I really kind of empathise with you. If you've got something that's really stressing you at the moment and somebody goes, hey, just see it as an opportunity, you want to kind of roll your eyes. But actually, it's in your best interest because of the chemical process. So if you imagine that perception, you've seen the bear, if that isn't even a bear anymore and it's something really good, that adrenaline, that cortisol is not going to flood your body, and you're not going to have that reaction. So it's in your best interest to really try, and it has to be quite a conscious effort. It's not just going to happen automatically like the untrained dog, to change your lens and see it differently. And that will really shift that chemical process in your body. So that would be my kind of first takeaway, is try. The threat and the challenge thing is really key. If you're seeing something as a threat, you're going to go into fight or flight. If you see something as a challenge, something you can get your teeth stuck into, an opportunity, something you can look forward to, it will completely change the chemical reaction in your body. So there's something we can really do to help our mental stress, is that change of perspective. And this is really interesting. So stress is really an achiever's word for fear. So in today's day and age, we spoke about how, you know, it's not the saber-toothed tiger, it's not the bear. We have an anomaly with COVID at the moment, but usually these things that are stressing us out, it's really just a fear of something. And we need to get to the root of what that fear really is, because 9 times out of 10 at the moment, it isn't life or death. And if it is, there is still work to be done around that in terms of fear, but that can get quite spiritual. But just looking at a very practical level, if stress is fear, then what are you scared of? And that is such an important question. And the answer usually comes in the form of not feeling good enough in some way, or feeling loved. Now, I know this can feel like a jump and it can feel like a stretch. You know, if you're starting a new job, or your kids are annoying you, or your family's stressing out, whatever it might be, when we're in reactive state, we just get angry and we go, oh, you're stressing me out. But, you know, they talk about lower self and higher self. That's kind of our chimp reaction. That's our lower self. Our higher self knows there's more to it than that. What is it about that thing that is really stressing you out? Is it the person? And there's a lot of work we can do. We haven't got time today to go into this in too much detail, but usually when someone is irritating you or something is making you stressed or angry and it's person related, it's because they're reminding you of something in yourself. Otherwise, you wouldn't have such a reaction. It's only when it reminds you of something in you that it really triggers you. So that can be helpful from a person perspective, especially with children. That is so common, or with, relatives. In terms of kind of starting a new job, this fear of not being liked, of not being loved, this is an absolute human need. And if that is threatened, we feel stressed, because that, for us as humans, is life or death. And this comes from, and I spoke about this in our last stress presentation, the mother's oxytocin at birth. We are loved unconditionally as humans, as babies, and then the oxytocin wears off in the mother, and we have to start to do things to be loved. So we start to associate achievement with love, and if we don't achieve, we're not loved, and that's kind of the world ended for us as humans. That's where it comes from. So this not feeling good enough is usually the crux of a lot of stress, this fear of not being loved or not being good enough. So I would really also encourage you, we talk a lot about self-inquiry and journaling. Rather than just living in reactive state and going, oh God, that really stresses me out, take the time to look into it, to lean into it rather than avoid it, and go, where is that really coming from? What am I actually scared of? And if you front into that fear and realise well, I'm not actually scared of that at all, you become fearless, and therefore you become stressless. So lean into it and find out, what are you really scared of? And if it is this not feeling good enough, that is a not truth. That's something that we've learned that isn't true. And then we can start to quite easily move past that. This is something that's really helpful in teams, especially working in business, where if you as the boss or the leader of your team or whatever it is, some people, and we can all experience this at sometimes, we become the bear, right? We become the person that is stressing somebody else out. And what we need to understand as leaders is that's not an effective way of working. So the Yerkes-Dodson law shows that a little bit of stress is good, and we're all going to have that naturally if we are, natural achievers, which, a lot of people are. But then the minute you go into too much stress, you hit fatigue. And then you go into exhaustion, anxiety, panic, anger, and burnout. So as a leader, it's actually your job to keep people in this green zone. And if people are going over, you need to work out what it is that they're scared of, what it is that's stressing them out, and bring them back into their most productive zone. And that's in this green zone here, which is a little bit of stress. Optimum stress is, green, in that green to white area, but not heading into fatigue. So it might be useful for you if you're in a team and you can't work out how to help somebody to perform, or they're in anxiety, or they're really stressed out and it's really affecting them. You can help them by figuring out what it is that they're really scared of. And it might be something, really surprising, and you could move on leaps and bounds if you both really understood that. And then it's about you as a leader keeping people in this not too stressed, purely from a performance perspective, if nothing else, but obviously just for a better working environment too. So that's something to consider from a mental stress perspective. Now, here's the really practical side of things. What happens then from a physical stress perspective? So a question to you guys, what do you do to de-stress? And if it's anything exercise related, that would be really helpful to know as well.
Go for a run. Running.
Yeah.
Running. Go for a
Running.
run.
So interesting.
Walk the dog.
Walking the dog. Okay, brilliant. Yeah.
Yoga.
Yoga. Yay. Okay. Good. Good. Yoga, running, walking. Anything else?
Mountain biking.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay.
Play drums.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, so I said exercise, but there'll be loads of other stuff. So drums, anything non-exercise related.
Go and make a cup of tea.
Yeah, simple, lovely.
And have a drink of tea.
Yeah, we're British,
Sitting in the
aren't
hot tub with a beer.
we? Sorry, go again.
Sitting in the hot tub with a cool beer.
Sounds great.
Blowing things up.
Blowing things up. Wow, okay. Okay, so we're going to work through this and have a look at why you're doing that stuff and how it works, and if there's something that could be working better for you. So this is what happens with stress. So you've seen when we get stressed, cortisol, the stress hormone, is released. When cortisol is released, cortisol is acidic, okay? And when you've got an acidic environment in your body, okay, this is what causes inflammation and reduces our immune system, okay? Inflammation is, if you've ever had any sort of disease which ends in itis, it means inflamed. Now, I'm not a doctor and I'm oversimplifying, but it's a helpful framework to keep in mind. Arthritis, for example, is inflammation of the joints, okay? Now, this stuff doesn't have to be permanent. And I always find arthritis a really good example of that, because people come into the yoga studio and they go, no, I can't do that, I've got arthritis. And it's almost like we write ourselves off sometimes when we get some forms of illness. And actually, it's all because of this equation. It's because of the inflammation, which is because of the acidic environment, which is because of the stress. And if we can reduce our stress, we're going to dramatically change our physical, chemical, and therefore our health state of the body. So this is why we need to be taking stress seriously. So let's have a look at what we can do about it. So here's what we do, right? This chap on the right, I don't think he works at Bosch. So we stress our mind all day in the office, okay? Hopefully not, but generally speaking, most people feel stressed over 70% of their day, okay? And our body can only get rid of the stress hormone for 30% of your day. So the rest of that is building up as excess in the body, that acid is building up. So we stress our minds all day in the office, and then we look at our Fitbit or our Apple Watch or whatever watch, you know, your steps and your calories and all of that, and we go, oh no, and then try and stress our bodies in the gym. So we either go to HIIT or we go to spin or we go, you know, as high a burn as possible is very, very common. Now what happens is high intensity exercise increases cortisol. Low intensity exercise decreases cortisol. So you've built up your cortisol during the day in the office because of your mental stress. And then to try and meet your steps or your calories, whatever it might be, you go to the gym, you do high intensity exercise and keep increasing your cortisol. So the problem is, look, exercise is good and high intensity exercise is brilliant, but not if you're stressed. And this is where we've got to look at exercise in a health perspective rather than an appearance perspective. And I say that because, you know, with a lot of sympathy, because we all do it, right? We all want to look better. That's, you know, that's completely normal. But we need to make sure that what we're doing in the gym is for our health as well as our appearance, but certainly for our chemical health. So here's some examples of high intensity exercise. So you've got your HIIT classes, your running, your spinning, and low intensity exercise, which is things like swimming, yoga, you know, gentle cycling, gentle walking, whatever it might be. Now, I can almost hear people kind of groaning and going, oh, you know, it's a bit boring, isn't it? And what is the reason, really, is my question. What is the reason that we don't do low intensity exercise? And here's just a reminder of what the effect of cortisol is in the body. So this is what can be caused from high intensity exercise, but also from stress. So I'll read some of these out. So anxiety, twitching of the eyes, craving salty foods or sweet foods. I'm going to come on to that in a little bit. So you can see the irony of this circle here, where you do these high intensity exercises, you increase cortisol, you go home and you binge because you're craving these high sugar foods. High blood sugar, reflex, you know, I don't want to get too depressing, so we'll leave it there. But there's a lot, okay? There's a lot of effects of cortisol. So what is the adversity to low intensity exercise? Now, some of you have said walking your dog, brilliant, and you know, yoga and bits and pieces like that. But most people are doing high intensity exercise. And the answer tends to be the fear of gaining weight. And this comes back to that stress, that fear of being liked, etc., etc. And we have this fear of weight gain, which is understandable, but we have to look at that separately. We have to look at 80% of weight gain is diet. It's what we're eating. So then, you know, we don't need to look at exercise just to keep burning off what we're eating. We're looking at exercise to actually rid that stress hormone out of the body. So low intensity exercise, you know, is really important to kind of separate those two. Now, obviously, you know, I say this all with a caveat because exercise is great for losing weight, but we just have to be a little bit smarter than that, and we have to look at what exercise we're doing and when we're doing it. And if we're feeling stressed, you know, our mental health is so directly linked to our physical health, it could be worth trying something low intensity as well, and then looking more at diet for losing weight rather than just burning that in the gym and increasing stress. And so there's a really interesting quote here. What are you really hungry for? Deepak Chopra wrote that. So when we're looking at our diet, it's so directly linked to stress. When we feel stressed, we crave high sugar foods. If we're feeling content, we're feeling satisfied, often we don't feel so hungry. So there's that question, what are you really hungry for? And there was a really interesting experiment done recently, actually, where, this is a bit of a sideline, so I'll try and explain it quickly and clearly. There was 2 groups of people that went in for this experiment, and they were asked to eat a big greasy donut. And one group that ate the greasy donut afterwards were told, oh, don't worry, you deserved it, and were given loads of compassion. And the other group weren't given anything at all. They were then handed a bowl of M&Ms. The people who experienced compassion didn't want the M&Ms. They had like 1 or 2. The people who had no compassion ate the whole bowl of M&Ms as well. So what this shows us is that compassion goes hand in hand with stress and also weight gain. If we're kinder to ourselves, if we're less stressed, then we don't have to crave those sugary foods, and we don't give up. We don't have that sense of worthlessness that goes, oh, sod it, and then we eat everything. So compassion is a really, you know, scientifically proved way of reducing stress. So it's linking back into the mental health side of things there. Compassion is really important. You want to be your best friend going into whatever battle there is. If life has become a battle for whatever reason, compassion will really help you out of that state. But it also helps your physical state, because it can be so directly linked to diabetes, to increased blood pressure, because of the foods we crave. So be very aware when you're making your choices for diet and food, etc., whether it's coming from a physical hunger or whether it's coming from an emotional need. We need to separate the two. And if you can do that, and you can be more compassionate and feel more kind of whole and satisfied and content, you may not crave those foods, and then you'd be okay with doing low intensity exercise, because exercise wouldn't just be there to burn off the food that you're eating because you're stressed. So I hope this is making sense. It's all a really kind of circular equation, but once you've got it, it becomes very, very obvious. So just bear some of these concepts in mind. So there's the question, what are we really going to the gym for? And that can seem a bit kind of cheeky, but it's not. Just keep it in mind. We all do it, but just make sure you're doing your exercise for the right reason, for health, rather than anything else. And I've worked through this with some of you before, which is the order of your values, which can be a really, really important exercise. So getting clear on what it is that you actually prioritise. And if appearance is over health, then that's going to really dictate a lot of your behaviour. Whereas if you can start shifting your values to put health at the top, it's going to change the decisions that you make. And that can be, you know, that's really important, I think, in behaviour change. There's no point going on a quick fix diet. There's no point trying to, you know, eradicate stress, you know, just by changing your lens really quickly. A lot of it comes from the order of your values. If you are really clear on what you value the most, you can design a life which is in line with your values. So therefore you'll feel less stressed because you're not going against kind of your grain and what you really want. So get clear on what it is that you value the most. Is it family? Is it travel? Is it adventure? Is it achievement? And once you understand what that is, you can design your life to be aligned with your values so that you don't feel stressed every day. If you don't know what that is, then you're likely to feel stressed because you're not living in kind of alignment with what you really want. So again, something else to practice. And I'm very happy to kind of chat these through or email me or whatever, get in touch if you need a hand with any of it. But just practical tools that can really make a difference. So there's a quote to kind of finish things off. So the body experiences disease as a consequence of the person being in dis-ease, not happy, or out of balance chemically, which can be caused through an emotional or a physical process. We spoke about this with sleep. So we just need to really understand that our physical health is directly connected to our happiness, our levels of stress. If we are in dis-ease, if we aren't happy somewhere, we're in conflict mentally or fear mentally, then we're out of balance. We're in dis-ease, and our body will show us that through disease, like a knocking on our door, so that we listen, we adjust our life to bring us back into balance and out of dis-ease into ease, i.e. out of stress. So I hope that you found that helpful. There's kind of the very simple equation. Balance is being in ease, out of dis-ease, or stress. It's kind of the same thing. Creating balance in your life is going to help you. Yoga reduces stress physically and mentally. Now that obviously I'm very biased because I'm a yoga teacher, but it's one of the very few things that does both. So you could, do loads of form of exercise, which might burn a load of calories, or you could do a load of form of exercise that might be really kind of low intensity, which is great, like walking, whatever it might be. But you also need the mental side of it. You need the coaching, you need the psychology, you need the reflection, you need the journaling, the meditation, the strengthening of the mind. And yoga does both, which is why I'm so passionate about it. Perfect. Okay, gang. Now, you may have some questions. We've still got quite a lot of time, actually. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to go ahead and just do the yoga and do the meditation, and then we've got time for questions at the end, if that's okay. So get yourself comfy. That's the first thing to do. Now, this is designed for you to be sitting on a chair. You could also do it sitting on the floor, but I wanted to make it really practical so that you can kind of do it from your desk. So do kind of feel free to get a chair if you're not on one already, or if you don't fancy that, just pop yourself in any kind of position. We're just going to have a stretch, and we're going to try and decrease any of those stress hormones in the body by just moving, but in a gentle way. Okay, so I'll give you a moment just to kind of get comfy. And if you do have any injuries, obviously just make sure that you're doing this within, a range that feels comfortable. So don't overdo it. Obviously it's seated yoga, so it's not going to be strenuous, but if anything starts to kind of any aches or pains or anything, then obviously just ease off. This is just a little taster, so don't overdo it. So hopefully you're getting yourselves comfy now. You might want to pop your shoes off. If you're warm, obviously just take a layer off, whatever it is that you need to do. Now we're going to start with your feet facing 12 o'clock. So once you're seated, just pop your feet down on the ground at 12 o'clock. You might want to shuffle your chair a little bit further away from your desk so you've got some space, and make sure there's nothing else in the way that you couldn't trip or slip over. And then you're just going to make sure that you're sitting upright. So your spine is upright but not tense. So just make sure that you've got a long spine, but that your shoulders are relaxed. So let your shoulders just fall down away from your ears. Make sure your jaw is relaxed. We've mentioned last time that the teeth should only be touching when we eat. You don't need to be chomping on your jaw any other time. That is a real sign of stress. And you do need to take a moment to just notice these autopilots that you might have, because they could be a real cause for headache, eye strain even. Stress is connected to all of that. So if you take a moment like we are now, just to place your feet on the ground, and then notice anywhere where you're holding stress, whether that's the jaw, the shoulders, or the brows. It's really common to be frowning. Can you try and just let that go? It might help you to take a deep breath in and a big long sigh out. And you're on mute, so go for it. If you really want to kind of sigh that out, yawn it out, clear all the old breath away, old tension away, and imagine that you are literally breathing out the stuff that you don't want, making the choice to let go of anything that's stressing you through your exhale. Really nice. And then when you're ready, you're just going to bring your hands to your heart center. Now, I know this kind of brings up images and cliches of yoga, but there's a reason that we do this, and it's not for prayer or anything like that. When you have your thumb knuckles pressed into the centre of your rib cage, you will be able to feel your heart beating in your chest. In gratitude, we cannot be stressed and grateful at the same time. So if we practice gratitude, our brain cannot be worrying about all the other stuff that we usually worry about. So gratitude obliterates stress. So when you've got your thumb knuckles pressed here into the centre of your rib cage and you feel your heart beating, it's a very simple reminder for you to just be grateful for your health, especially in today's day. Really grateful to even be well enough to be sitting here, to be doing yoga. And the moment we shift our perspective and we become more grateful, chemically it's proven that we feel less stressed. So gratitude for the heart for keeping going no matter what we put it through stress-wise. It's all a choice. So thanks to the heart and anything else that you're grateful for. Be that family, friends, opportunity, whatever it is. Just completely shifts the headspace. Takes a bit of practice and it can all feel a little bit out there to start with, but I promise you'll feel the effects of it. And then you ask yourself this really important question, which is connected to that compassion experiment that I explained. So if we feel whole, we won't feel so stressed, so scared, and therefore we won't crave stuff that isn't healthy for us. So you ask yourself, what is it that I need? What do I need? And just take a moment to let that land. You may not have a clue. Something to practice to get really clear on that. It's so important. And then you're going to try throughout this short session just to really focus on that and breathe that thing in that you need every time you move, so that you start to feel fuller. You fill up on what it is that you need so you don't crave it elsewhere. So really simple now. You're just going to interlace your fingers from that hands at heart centre position. So the hands are interlaced. You're just going to reach them right up to the sky. So knuckles are reaching up to the ceiling and you're arching your back. You can look up to the ceiling, which makes that a bit of a bigger stretch. So this physically starts to really open up the chest and the heart. And when we get stressed, that's where a lot of our tension can be held. Perfect. Now do the opposite. So interlace the hands behind your back and you draw your knuckles down and then really lift your chest up. And try and almost squeeze your shoulder blades towards each other like they're gripping a biro between your shoulder blades. So that would be plenty. If you wanted a little bit more, you could fold forward so that your belly and your chest are on your thighs and your hands are reaching up towards the ceiling as you keep them interlaced behind your back. Perfect, guys, well done. Now you're going to interlace the hands in front of you and you push them away. So your knuckles are pushing towards the computer, whatever you're facing. You tuck your chin into your chest and really round your back as much as you can. So this is just stretching the opposite way. So we've got opening and then we've got this space through the back, through the vertebrae. And our energy comes from our spine. So the more mobility we have in our spine, the more energy we're going to have, which again is going to help us feel less stressed or at least have the energy to combat it. They also say we're only as old as our spine. So keep your spine young, keep it moving. Okay, lovely. Now from there, you're just going to cross your legs. Okay, so you've got your right leg, we'll start with, the right knee over the left knee. And then you're going to take your hands back to that heart centre position. So the palms are pressed in the centre of your chest. And you're going to take your left elbow towards your right knee. Okay, if that doesn't happen, just straighten the arms and take the back of the left arm to the right knee. And then you can reach your right hand up to the sky. So you've got this lovely twisted position. You've got the knee moving over to the left, and then you've got your left arm long against it, and your right arm reaching up to the sky and look up to the right hand. So you've got this brilliant twist through your body. Take a few moments just to breathe there and just feel that lovely opening. Well done. And then come back to centre, hands to heart centre, switch sides. So left foot comes over right knee, or left knee, sorry, over right knee at this stage. And go the other way. So you're going to take your left elbow to your right knee and then expand the arms there. So right hand down, left hand up. So what you're also doing here is imagine that your digestive system is like a sponge. And you fill it with water as you breathe. Big inhale to the belly. And as you exhale, you twist, and it's like rinsing the water out of the sponge. So it's detoxing and cleansing the digestive system. So this detox is getting rid of that cortisol, that stress hormone, as well as increasing mobility in the spine, so energy. Okay, perfect, guys, well done. So from here, you're just going to place your right foot over your left knee, and then you're going to gently push your right knee down towards the ground. Okay, so I'll say that again. So you've got your right foot over your left knee and you're gently pushing your right knee down to the ground. Spine still upright. Okay, now you will feel, if you don't, then well done, you've got open hips, but like a stretching in the right hip here, the right hip joint. So this is a hip opener. Now hip openers are really important. A lot of our knee injury, our back injuries can come from tight hips, which comes from our lifestyle of sitting, desk work, driving. So you hear of these people who don't have any chairs in their house. The sitting isn't great for us, right? So this helps to open us up. The irony that we're doing this on a chair, but it really helps to open up the hips. Okay, perfect. Let's switch sides. So this time you're going to take your left foot over your right knee. So I'm choosing poses here which aren't too out there, they're discreet, so that you could be in the office doing this without too many people raising their eyes. But there's lots of different poses that you can do in chair yoga which are really helpful. If you are interested in the more kind of emotional side of things, they say that our hips, because it's the biggest joint available in the human body, it's the biggest space available. When we suppress emotions, so if we're not expressing them, it's an energy, it stays within the body unless we express it out, they go into the hip joint. So if you feel stress and you feel anger and you're not communicating that, or you're not walking it out, or you're not getting the cortisol out of the system, it stays in the hips and the hips get really tight. And that can often lead to injury. And often what we feel, emotion just means energy in motion, emotion. So often, as we move that energy out of the hips, we can feel it. So sometimes when you're in a hip opener, you're doing these poses, you start feeling annoyed, irritated, whatever it might be. A lot of that can be coming up, and it's better out than in, so we welcome that. Perfect, guys, well done. Okay, and then a really simple forward fold. So just take an inhale, reach your hands up, and as you exhale, fold forward, so belly comes onto the thighs. And you let the hands move down towards the feet. They don't have to go all the way. Let your head hang when you're there. So this is like a seated inversion because it lets the oxygen get to the head even as you're sitting. And that's what we want. We want that clarity by the oxygen getting to the brain. Often when we get stressed, we shallow breathe. So we breathe into the chest. So the oxygen doesn't get to the organs, therefore doesn't get to the brain, and we get confused. We forget people's names, all that basic stuff, because we haven't got oxygen in the brain, because we're shallow breathing. So make sure that you're belly breathing, and that's what we're going to move on to now, as you slowly uncurl yourself back up to a seat. And we're just going to close with a short meditation. So again, any comfortable position that works for you. And I don't mind at all if you want to lie down, change wherever you're sitting. Just get as comfortable as you can. If you're staying where you are, just gently close your eyes down. So we discussed earlier that meditation is exercise for the brain. If we didn't exercise the body, it would disease. If we don't exercise the mind, the same thing happens. The untrained mind will wander off to the past, which can lead to depression, or to the future, which can lead to anxiety. So what we're trying to do is stay present in this moment, the only moment that exists. So like we did the other week, good to practice. You want a ritual, so every time you come to do this, you know exactly what you're doing. So to start with, just take your awareness to the base of your nostrils and simply feel the breath enter and leave. And notice how quickly your mind wanders off. And every time it does, guide it back to the sensation at the base of your nostrils. The temperature of the breath. The difference on the inhale to the exhale. And as the mind wanders off, notice, does it tend to go to the future or the past? Get to know yourself better. What are your thought patterns? Where do you tend to go? And if it's to someone, do you want to be giving them your energy? Can you bring it back to yourself? Does the place that your mind is wandering to serve you or deplete you? And this can be really good stuff to journal as well if you notice what was coming up for you, what was consuming your thoughts, and then choosing what to do about that. 90% of our thoughts every day are the same, and we're just wasting energy, and that can lead to burnout. So do something productive with them once you've taken the time to notice them. I'm going to give you 2 short meditations now to help combat stress before we move on to Q&A. So the first one is very physical. You need to place your left hand on your heart and your right hand on your belly. So this is the most rejuvenating form of breath meditation we can do. It's called figure of 8 breath. So to start with, I just want you to breathe into your left hand and feel your lungs expand. And then open the mouth and sigh that out. Do that a couple of times so you get really used to noticing and controlling where your breath goes. So it's going into the left hand, into the rib cage, into the lungs. Inhale, expand the lungs, feel the left hand rise. And then big sigh out through the mouth. A couple of those in your own time. Make it as long and as big as you need it. So you're not just listening to me, but you're doing it in a way that has meaning to you. Okay, and now shift that so that you're breathing into the right hand. So on an inhale, expand your belly and feel your right hand rise. And then again, big sigh out through the mouth, let it go. Good, keep doing that into the right hand and see how big you can make your belly go on the inhale. The bigger the better. No sucking in here, just really make the belly go big. So carbon dioxide is acidic. So if we don't fully exhale, that can also increase acidity. So we need big clearing exhales. Okay, so now we combine the two. This is the most effective pattern of breath. So you inhale half into the heart, the rest into the belly, out of the belly, and out past the heart. Okay, keep focused on that. So try again, into the heart, the rest into the belly, and out of the belly, and out of the heart. It takes a bit of practice, so keep having a go. Half into the heart, the rest into the belly, out of the belly, and out of the heart. Into the heart, belly, out of belly, out of heart. And you could just let yourself fall into that rhythm. That will keep you completely present. Will regulate the nervous system and will bring the body back into balance chemically. Two more of those in your own time. Now, the body can't always tell the difference between the physical and the emotional. So if we act something out physically, we can feel it emotionally. So to close that meditation, I want you to take a deep breath into the belly, open the hands and physically let go as you exhale. Okay, I want you to do that a couple of times and feel like you are physically letting go of any tension from the heart. So breathe in, big clearing breath, open the hands, throw it away. Good, two more of those, really go for it. Make the choice to let go of what you don't need. Perfect. Okay, now if you are still with me, I'm going to do a really short but relaxation based meditation. So that one's quite practical for people who enjoy that. If you haven't nodded off yet, this one will send you off, okay? So this is really relaxation based and perfect for today's weather. So close your eyes down. Okay, so imagine, and this is quite a typical one, but it's useful to have this script in your mind. Imagine that you are laying on a golden beach. Okay, bear with me, I need you to really connect with the sensation. So you've got warm sand beneath your skin. And you can feel the sun's glowing rays on your face. And you can hear the sea lapping. This is multi-sensory. If we engage the senses, we stay present. So the warm sand, you can feel it under your feet, your ankles, your calves, your hands. You can feel the breeze against your skin as you lay there. And that sun glowing onto your face. So imagine that you have an ice cube which represents your stress. You're going to place it in the centre of your chest. As you take a deep breath in, you breathe in all of that warmth, that golden glowing sunlight, and as you exhale, that ice cube begins to melt and it starts to pool in the centre of your chest. You continue to take a deep inhale and soak up all of that warmth, that golden energy. And as you exhale, you start to feel that pool of water just start to slide down the sides of the rib cage as it's soaked up into the warm sand beneath you. You continue to breathe in, breathing in that warmth, that energy, that lightness. And as you breathe out, the final drops of that ice cube are totally soaked up, absorbed by the sand, leaving your whole body feeling warm, relaxed, and at ease. Continue that process as long as you need to, taking a few more breaths in, just enjoying that golden warmth, that sunlight on your face. You feel that energy soak up into the bones of your body. displacing any of the stuff that doesn't serve you, making the choice to let that go. Notice how the body can sink heavily into the ground, feeling completely supported by the ground beneath you. Yet how you also feel almost weightless, without boundaries. Mind relaxed and at ease. Take a deep breath in. Big clearing exhale out through the mouth. And then gently wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes. And then in your own time, just gently blink your eyes open, coming back into the moment. Okay, everybody, so I hope you enjoyed that. Two very different styles of meditation, one quite practical, one more visual. So hopefully there was something there for everyone, and in terms of the presentation, going through the mental side of stress, but also the physical and what we can do to combat that in both instances. So we started a little bit late, so we've got a couple of minutes, if it's okay with you, Ellen, for any questions. As I say, I'm more than happy to reply to emails, bits and pieces like that. If you don't want to ask them on here, that's absolutely fine. But fire away if you do. Brilliant, no problem. You have sand between your toes. I know some people are still asleep on the beach, so I don't blame you if you've got your pina colada now. That's it.